everyone, and welcome. Some of the stories we have for you right now. The hotly anticipated blockbuster showdown in the Four Nations final.
I don't think there's ever been Canadian patriotism like what you see right now.
The NHL's top Canadian and American stars suit up for bragging rights.
The Arctic is going to be what we call the great game of the 21st century.
A dire warning for Canada from far-right American activist Steve Bannon. Cyber sabotage or something else, an undersea mystery in Atlantic Canada.
Canada's our neighbor, and you don't treat neighbors that way.
Plus, warm welcome for a Canadian vessel in U.S. waters.
CTV National News with Sandy Ronaldo.
It's showtime. The madly anticipated Four Nations Championship face-off between Team Canada and the U.S. is tonight, and Canadian pride is on the line, not just because Donald Trump has been goading us. Today on social media, Trump said he won't be at the game, but he went back to his playbook, calling on the governor of the 51st state to watch along with him. Trump's disrespect aside, there's a long history to this cross-border rivalry. The last time these two teams went head-to-head was at the Vancouver 2010 Olympics, and we won. CTV's Paul Hollingsworth is in Boston. Paul, I don't want to jinx the outcome of the game. There have to be a lot of Canadians, I would hope, showing up. Boston, the Americans have the advantage being in Boston. But what about Canadians? Are you seeing them around?
A lot of Canadians, Sandy. We shifted from inside the arena outside here, outside the TD Garden, and we've been doing stop and chats for the past 30 minutes here. You know, literally dozens of Canadian fans going by, wearing their jerseys, proudly cheering for Team Canada. So that's exciting to see. Basically, there is a heavy Canadian contingent in town for this historic game, and we talked to some fans earlier today on the street. They are here, they are fired up, they are excited. They don't like the talk that's being said by the Americans about Canada in some cases. They're trying to focus on the game, but they're using all of it to fuel their passions in anticipation of tonight's showdown between the U.S. and Team Canada.
I don't think there's ever been Canadian patriotism like what you see right now. This is bringing the country together, including Quebec, which I think is phenomenal. Me being, born and bred from Quebec as well, I love seeing the unity in Canada, and who would think that it was an American president bringing Canada together like this, eh?
When he says this morning, Governor Trudeau, and hints at a 51st state, how does that make you feel as a Canadian?
Awful, but proud at the same time that we're all coming together against that.
Those tweets just fuel the fire for Canada, I think, especially the players in the locker room. They're going to see something like that from Trump coming out, and they're going to say, okay, you know what, this is not happening. We're still the best Canadian hockey players in the world. We're the best country in the world. We're going to do this for our country, and we're all feeling it.
Very pumped for the game, hoping to get in. Gonna have to, donate a kidney or something to get in there tonight. I wish I bought them weeks ago when they're a lot cheaper, but, USA all the way today.
Okay, pumped. Paul, remind us why the rivalry between these two teams runs so deep.
Well, it is long and deep, Sandy. 1996 World Cup, America wins. Canada wins gold medals in 2002, 2010 over the Americans. That's the backdrop leading into this. But of course, the last time they played just 5 days ago, 3 fights in the first 9 seconds. These teams don't like each other. That rivalry and all those other aspects blend into an epic showdown tonight here in Boston in a few hours from now when they drop the puck.
All right, Paul, thank you so much. Now, political agendas will be on display at the Conservative Political Action Conference in Maryland. Key influencers are there, including controversial podcast host and Donald Trump's former strategist, Steve Bannon. CTV's Judy Trin is in Maryland and spoke to Bannon. Okay, Judy, tell us about the event first.
Sandy, Vice President J.D. Vance spoke here this morning, and on Saturday, the president will take the stage at CPAC. What is clear is that mega influencers hold sway at this conference, among them Steve Bannon. Trump's former chief strategist, who has also been convicted of contempt of Congress, is not part of the current White House administration, but Bannon says that he still talks regularly with the president. Bannon says Canadians should consider it a compliment that Trump wants to annex Canada.
For him to even mention that, and to have the American people say, hey, this is something we really like think. The Canadians should take that as the greatest compliment you've ever had.
On social media, Trump again posted that Canada would get lower taxes and stronger security if it became part of the United States. For Bannon, the next big geopolitical battle for territory will take place in the Arctic, where he believes Canada's sovereignty will be threatened by China and the Russians. Bannon says Canada doesn't have the military might to defend the North.
If you think you can actually secure the Arctic to the degree you need to secure it against the Chinese Communist Party and the Russians, and still have the rest of your defense budget and still make your commitments to NATO, you have not run the math. That math does not work. You're going to have major cuts to social programs to do that, or raise taxes significantly.
Now, I asked Steve Bannon if Trump's idea for the 51st state was something that would take place over a generation. Bannon responded that Trump wants to take action while he's president, and that some mega strategists like himself are trying to figure out if it truly is a constitutional violation for Trump to run again for re-election in 2028. Sandy.
Okay, Judy, thank you. A deep-sea mystery in the waters between Newfoundland and Nova Scotia. A subsea fiber optic cable connecting the provinces has been cut for the second time in less than a year. It has the RCMP and Bell Canada, which owns the cable, and CTV investigating. Now, the cable stretches across the Cabot Strait from Dingwall, Nova Scotia to Codroy, Newfoundland. CTV's Quebec Bureau Chief Geneviève Beauchemin now on the conundrum and the importance of that connection. Jen.
Yes, Andy, evidence that was found 30 meters below the surface there has been handed over to the RCMP for this investigation. That's quite complex. Video obtained by CTV News shows the work done to repair the damage. This to a crucial 3-centimeter wide cable that was sliced.
What we find on the cut is not something that's torn, but an actual clean cut. It looks like it was cut by some sort of tool. This severed the 140-kilometer network path that provides internet, TV, wireless, long-distance voice and emergency services to Newfoundland. Bell, the company which owns CTV News, rerouted services, and there was no impact, but it put the system at risk. We do have the RCMP engaged so that they could, conduct a full investigation and get to the bottom of it for us. Cutting these cables is no easy work. They're protected by coils of thick wire. But there have been other incidents internationally, too. A day after the latest Cabot Strait cut, a cable was severed in the Baltic Sea, one in a string of suspected sabotage in recent years. In January, NATO launched Operation Baltic Sentry, dispatching warships, drones, and aircraft to protect critical cables from any threat. Suspicion has centered on Russian ships.
We are the CCTVs of the Baltic Sea region, and we hope to deter anybody who might be inclined to cause unlawful action or damage.
Bell says it's up to the RCMP to determine who or why the cable in the Cabot Strait was damaged. But there are other possibilities than international sabotage.
One good hypothesis would be that an anchor got caught in it. And as you're trying to bring up your anchor, because you're moving on, the anchor's stuck on this cable, and then you need to free your anchor of this cable. And maybe people don't understand that it's such an important cable.
So Bell is spreading the word. For now, a specialized repair ship using a rover has fixed the damage and buried the cable further into the sand. Bell is now trying to figure out whether there's surveillance options so it could warn off ships that come too close to this critical infrastructure, Sandy.
Okay, Geneviève, thank you. The investigation into the Delta Airlines crash in Toronto is well underway, with the fuselage now removed. Most airlines are struggling to bring back stranded customers because of bad weather and the accident that closed 2 runways. Sunwing seems to be the focus of frustration for many travelers. CTV's Heather right now on the investigation and the ongoing travel chaos. Heather.
Sandy, frustration for travelers is mounting here in Canada and down south after Sunwing canceled dozens of flights as the airline tries to recover from storms and the plane crash.
It's not clear how many Sunwing travelers are still stranded south. They are stuck in paradise, but say this ordeal is quickly becoming a nightmare.
I know this is a difficult situation. I know Toronto got hit hard in a number of ways.
Jacqueline Cook has been trying for days to get home from the Dominican Republic and says getting basic information from Sunwing has been a challenge. Her group was finally told yesterday they were on a flight that evening and to wait for a transfer to the airport. but it never showed up.
So, Ubers were called and there was a mad scramble and people, jumping in, and we all ended up at the airport. And just as we got in line, they canceled the flight.
Yesterday, Sunwing announced it was canceling a number of southbound flights in order to free up planes and crew to bring people like Jacqueline home. This difficult but essential operational decision allows us to redirect our resources toward bringing delayed customers home as quickly and safely as possible. Balash Igli is among those whose vacation was canceled as a result.
We got an email and it just said your trip's canceled altogether.
Pearson is operating at 95% capacity, so it's interesting to see Sunwing do this. At the same time, there are smaller airlines that got limited airplanes to get people back.
Hundreds of flights at Pearson Airport have been canceled or delayed following Monday's plane crash. Last night, the fuselage of Delta Flight 4819 was removed from the runway, the first step in getting 2 runways reopened, another factor that has impacted delays. And today, Delta confirmed that all 21 passengers from that flight that were taken to hospital have been released.
The airline has offered $30,000 US to every passenger, no strings attached. However, lawyers say the first crash-related lawsuit is expected to be filed today. Sandy.
All right, Heather, thank you. The federal government today designated several criminal organizations as terrorist entities. It's a move by Canada to combat the fentanyl drug trade and also appease the Americans. Let's bring in CTV's Mike LeCouture. And Mike, who is on that list and why are they on it?
Well, Sandy, the public safety minister says the organizations on this list play a leading role in the production and distribution of fentanyl throughout this country. So here's the list of those drug cartels which have now been designated as terrorist groups. The Sinaloa group is perhaps the most well-known as the most powerful cartel in Mexico. By designating them a terrorist organization, the RCMP and other police forces will have more tools to follow the money and ultimately disrupt their operations. Now, Canada's top Mountie was also at today's announcement, where he said there is evidence these groups are working in this country.
I can confirm that we do have intelligence that different cartels operate in Canada. There's also strong intelligence that Canadians have actually moved to Mexico and South America to facilitate the transport of certain commodities into Canada, so we are aware of it.
Now, Mike, Canada's been implementing measures like this in response to President Trump's threat of punishing tariffs. Do you think this is going to help make a difference?
Yeah, well, we are hearing, Sandy, that these announcements are being noticed by people in the United States. David McGuinty, the public safety minister, denied that this was done in coordination with the U.S., despite the fact that around the same time today, those same 7 organizations were also listed as terrorist organizations in the United States. Now, you will remember Canada has also named a former RCMP Deputy Commissioner, Kevin Brosseau, as the new fentanyl czar. That was all part of that $1.3 billion investment to secure the border. The hope by the Canadian government is that this will earn Canada an exemption from those 25% tariffs, which, as you remember, could come into effect as early as March the 4th.
That's right.
Sandy?
Oh, thanks for reminding us. Okay, Mike, thanks. A surprise announcement this afternoon from the Premier of Prince Edward Island.
I would be stepping down as the Premier and the leader of the Progressive Conservative Party of Prince Edward Island, effective noon tomorrow.
Dennis King says he struggled with the decision to leave politics, but that it's best for his family, the government, and the people of PEI. King became Premier in May of 2019 and says a new leader will be chosen soon. And a report in the Globe and Mail says Liberal leadership candidate Ruby Dalla is being questioned by the party ahead of 2 high-stakes debates next week. The report says the former MP was asked about possible interference from India. In a statement to CTV News, the party says none of the questions was related to interference. A Dalla spokesperson did not provide specifics. In a tweet on the platform X, Dalla called the situation unacceptable and wrong. Coming up, a show of sorrow and solidarity. After the handover of the bodies of a young kidnapped family. Plus, dialing up the rhetoric, the widening rift between 2 presidents. Volodymyr Zelensky met with U.S. envoy retired General Keith Kellogg in Kyiv today at a time when Donald Trump is sharpening his personal attacks against Ukraine's president. Let's bring in CTV's Washington Bureau Chief Joy Malbon. Joy, how did that meeting go between the two men?
Sandy, it seemed to go pretty well. Both of them said that they had good discussions about security guarantees for Ukraine, the return of prisoners, and the desire for peace. But the press conference was suddenly canceled, apparently scrapped at the request of Washington. Now, given all the bad blood between President Trump, who called Zelensky a dictator and falsely blamed Ukraine for Russia's invasion, and Zelensky, in turn, accusing Trump of falling for Russian disinformation, here's what National Security Advisor Mike Walls had to say about all that.
His frustration with President Zelensky is that you've heard is multifold. So some of the rhetoric coming out of Kyiv, frankly, and insults to President Trump were unacceptable.
Joy, you gave us a sense of some of the comments that Donald Trump has made about Vladimir Zelensky, but there are others that you haven't shared with us, and some of them are quite nasty. What else is he saying?
Well, you know, last night on Air Force One, Trump again accused Zelensky of scamming the U.S. scamming Washington of all the military assistance during the Biden administration, asking where have all the billions of dollars gone. Trump told reporters that maybe he should resurrect a deal with Zelensky that would give American companies 50% ownership of Ukraine's rare earth minerals. Payback, Trump says, for the military assistance Washington has given Ukraine. Bad blood, Sandy.
Okay, Joy, thank you. A heartbreaking homecoming in Israel today for a young family that came to embody the pain of a nation following the October 7th terror attack.
Today is a day of mourn in Israel. It's a very sad day for all of us. We hope that they will come back alive, all of them.
Israelis lined the streets as the bodies of 4 hostages, including a mother and her 2 little boys, were brought home. The handover occurred in Gaza with Hamas supporters cheering and playing music. 6 hostages are expected to be released on Saturday. Turkey is helping the U.S. with an egg shortage by exporting about 15,000 tons of eggs. Production has slowed and egg prices have soared stateside due to an outbreak of bird flu. The deal, which is expected to generate around $26 million U.S. in export revenue for Turkey, comes at a time of deepening global trade tensions triggered by Donald Trump's tariff threats. And one of the world's most active volcanoes is offering a new spectacular display of fire. Fountains of lava are spewing into the air once again from Hawaii's Kilauea volcano. Spectators have been flocking to sites inside the national park for the stunning views. This is the 10th major eruption since December. And CTV National News will be right back. A story now about strength and healing. An Alberta mother speaking out for the first time since a 5-car pileup on Boxing Day that killed her young daughter. CTV's Kathy Lee spoke to the mom about her personal journey and the family's recovery. Kathy?
Sandy, Amanda Reitmeyer shared with us that she was knocked out during the crash and doesn't remember much except for waking up to the screams of her other daughter, Madison, who did survive. The 5-car pileup happened on Boxing Day at a major intersection in Calgary. 30-year-old Dwayne Napus allegedly robbed a pharmacy, assaulted the pharmacist, and stole a vehicle. He sped through the intersection, running a red light, and crashed into Reitmeyer and other vehicles. Reitmeyer was in the car with her 2 daughters, 12-year-old Madison and 9-year-old Victoria. Victoria did not survive.
Just what a lively kid she was. And how much she loved life, and she wouldn't want us to sit around.
Reitmeyer fractured her pelvis and spine and is finally able to walk for short periods of time, but still is a long way from a full recovery. Her daughter Madison is now out of her neck brace.
I can sit in front of all you guys today and you say how strong I am, but I don't feel the strength. But Victoria is my strength. Madison is my strength. I get through every day because of those 2 and my husband.
As for the accused, he was deemed fit to stand trial and faces a number of charges, including dangerous driving causing death. Sandy.
CTV's Kathy Lee. A 15-year-old boy is now facing first-degree murder charges in relation to a quadruple homicide on a Saskatchewan First Nation. The teenager, who can't be identified, was scheduled to appear in a Regina court today. 18-year-old Darius Racette was also arrested for killing 2 women and 2 men at a house on Carry the Kettle Nakota Nation on February the 4th. Police say the home was targeted, but have not provided a possible motive. After the break, navigating turbulent waters between friendly nations. Washington State opens its arms to BC residents. Donald Trump's tariff threats have spawned a growing patriotism in Canada, something reflected in declining trips to the U.S. And new numbers show that, in fact, fewer Canadians are going south to shop or vacation, which has prompted one American border town to roll out the red carpet and say, come on down. CTV's Andrew Johnson is in Port Angeles, Washington. And Andrew, what is the city doing?
Sandy, here in Port Angeles, Canadians aren't just considered friendly neighbors, they're vital visitors. So the arrival of the first ferry from Victoria, BC this year is a very big deal indeed. And the Canadians getting off the boat are being greeted with this hero's welcome. A cheering crowd of upwards of a couple of hundred greeted people departing the ferry after the 90-minute sailing. Port Angeles town officials say they've been, quote, freaking out about the tariff tiff between the countries and the calls for a Canadian boycott on American travel. And it appears those calls are being put into action. New numbers from Washington State show traffic at border crossings between BC and Washington State is down 20 to 40% in February, including a big dip over the recent long weekend. And that's why people thought it was so important to be out here today.
I mean, Canada's our neighbor, and you don't treat neighbors that way. And all of us are really upset about that.
Real Americans love you guys.
Some Canadians, greeted with an unexpected surge of love, became emotional.
It's so heartwarming, and I just appreciate all these people taking the time. It's very emotional.
People in Port Angeles tell me they know they can't do a lot about what's happening at a federal level, but what they can do is make sure Canadians arriving here know just how much they are loved, no matter what's happening in the White House. Sandy.
Okay, thank you, Andrew. And thank you for sharing your time with us. I'm Sandy Ronaldo. Omar is here later tonight, and Heather will be here tomorrow. Have a nice evening. Be well.